little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Reveal your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere. Realized everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. I know you're out there somewhere. This is the new totalitarian state. 1,000 eyes are waiting for you to break. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watch you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Let your experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British
Excited.
Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Let us play with all our toys and let us think that we're big boys and let us make the louder noise for women rule the world. They let us think we're Superman, that we're the only ones who can be strong, but we break on command because women rule the world.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And the deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Space Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, and thank you so much for tuning in to us at spacedoutradio.com and on Spreaker. As we come in from the frozen Canadian tundra, battle our way past the wild animals, sidestep Bigfoot, and enter Uncle Jimbo's cabin, stoke the fire, heat this place up, and broadcast you live on this Thursday night, early Friday morning if you're on the East Coast. Here at Spaced Out Radio, we broadcast 7 days a week. We want to be your official one-stop shop when it comes to the cryptozoological, spiritual, ufological, supernatural, and so much more. Space Out Radio's theme music is provided by guitar god Ron Bumblefoot Thal. You can find Bumblefoot's new album, Little Brother Is Watching, by going to our website, spacedoutradio.com. If you're a social media junkie like I am, give us a follow on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can join our private Spaced Out Radio group, as well as our other group, Podcast Central. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. That's where we hide our archives. And of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. At this time, as we do every night, we want to say hello to the packed house in the Space Out Radio chat room, Paranormal Into the Night, and Paranormal Forum. If you are a Facebook fan of ours, if you are a Twitter fan of ours, an Instagram fan of ours, soon on our website you can join the Space Travelers membership, where for only $5 a month you can win prizes, take part in private group interviews, get a monthly newsletter to see what we're doing, and so much more. Hey, for your hard-earned money, we're going to give you a hell of a lot more than just access to our archives. Tonight's show is brought to you by Rivulet Reiki and Readings, providing healings in person or at a distance. PurplePlates.com, helping heal your body, mind, and soul. The official newspaper of Space Out Radio is the new Agora newspaper, and the iPhone app Spirit Storybox is the official ghost hunting app of SOR. Tonight we are stepping back into the forest to have an open discussion about the creature many people from around North America and around the world report on every year. Yes, we're talking about Bigfoot once again. Sasquatch, as you know, is quite the elusive creature. It always seems to know where we are, but coming in contact with a big hairy beast seems to be far and few between. So little contact is made that usually the people who do run into him rarely take the time to report it. Now, there are many reasons why, from not being believed to facing ridicule to having such an unbelievable experience that you just want to keep it to yourself. The debate about Bigfoot is just as strong now as it was when the legendary Patterson-Gimlin film came out to the public in the late 1960s. Since then, the arguments on whether it's real or fake continue. Rebecca Coit has written a book about Sasquatch called The Bigfoot Paradox. It's almost a romantic look at the legends and stories of what Bigfoot really is. Tonight, we look to have Rebecca open our eyes to these lofty and pretty darn awesome encounters. We bring Rebecca Coit into Spaced Out Radio now. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us tonight. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Dave, for having me. Really excited to be here.
We're very excited to have you as well, because we talk a lot about cryptids on this show, Bigfoot mostly, because as someone who's an experiencer with Bigfoot, I love this topic. Take us back to when you first learned about Bigfoot and why, fast forwarding to today, that you decided to write a book on the subject.
I think ever since I was a kid, I've been fascinated with mysteries and especially stories of mysterious creatures. I grew up in New Jersey, so there were always stories about the Jersey Devil. And, you know, I always had a fascination with stories of the Loch Ness Monster and things like that. But Bigfoot, for me, was always something that I just found to be amazing because people were seeing it, seeing something out there. And it was happening all over the world throughout history. And I lived in Northern California for many years. And while there, of course, I did a few pilgrimages to, you know, the Redwoods. And this was really probably in the early 2000s. So before Finding Bigfoot and all of those TV shows kind of took off. And I always was just fascinated and really wanted to believe that a creature like that could exist undetected all these years. And that's where it started as a kid, and then I was a teacher for many years, and always had students that were interested in Bigfoot and loved to write their nonfiction informational reports on Bigfoot. So I thought that would be a topic that would really resonate with kids, especially middle grade kids who were just have questions and interested in the urban lore and the myths. But
it's one of those topics that is still so controversial. There's people 50 years later still breaking down the Patterson and Gimlin film. Do you find that funny or maybe a little ironic that 50 years to the day that it happened, that we are still having this giant debate on whether or not this creature exists, considering so many people a year are actually making claims of sightings? And yet they say, and I've talked to other researchers who research this on a daily basis, say it's only about less than 5% who are actually reporting what they've seen. So do you still scratch your head on how much debate there is out there on whether or not Bigfoot exists?
Well, I do, but I think it's healthy, and I think it's good to have these discussions. And now that the scientific community is acknowledging the possibility more so than ever before with someone like Dr. Jeff Meldrum, who has given the whole idea of, you know, the search for Bigfoot a little more legitimacy. I think it's probably a good thing that people aren't so quick to just make assumptions, but I also feel like there's probably more to this than meets the eye. And there always has been. And the one reason that keeps me coming back to the possibility that these creatures exist is that, like you said, so many people have these experiences. And I've had people contact me. They've been afraid to tell anyone. They are frightened of the possible sort of repercussions of coming forward with their stories. They're unsure of themselves because it is such an unreal experience to have. And, you know, I've never seen a Bigfoot, or there was one time I thought I might have heard something in the Redwoods. I still, to this day, the sound that I heard haunts me. And that's the closest I've come. And but I just think you may not have the physical evidence that the scientific community would prefer in order to establish that this creature exists, but you do have dozens and hundreds of eyewitness accounts from rational people who are not actually out to gain anything or get attention, who simply have had an experience that they can't reconcile. And to me, that's fascinating.
Do you fear for Bigfoot's safety? considering that if the creature was proven in existence, all of a sudden every sport hunter would be out in the wilderness trying to bag one so they could have a head on their wall, much like a moose or a set of deer antlers?
Yeah, I don't like that attitude of. I mean, I don't agree personally that there should be a killing or that one needs to be killed to prove it. I don't know how easy they would be to kill anyway. I'm not sure that they're the type of creature one can just go out and kill. I mean, they have proven to be so elusive. But no, I would never. I mean, and in my book, I kind of touch upon that. There are groups of people in the book who feel, the book's about Bigfoot hunting, and there are groups of people who feel absolutely, their philosophy is we need to, quote-unquote, bag a body to prove this to the world. And then there are other people that say, no, we need to protect. If they're real, they need to be protected. They need to be looked at as this unknown species. We need to maybe study them but not hurt them. And they're more like humans, and that would be murder. So depending upon your view of what a Bigfoot is it an ape? Is it more like a human? Is it something else? That philosophically, you have to decide what a Bigfoot actually is before, I guess, you decide if it would be illegal to kill one. But I think there are some laws on the books in places where it is illegal to kill them, which is pretty cool.
I know in British Columbia here, it is illegal to shoot and kill a Bigfoot. It's already law here in my province. Either way, I don't know if I would, because I have a feeling that if I was a hunter, which I'm not, I don't even own a gun, but if I was a hunter and I shot at a Bigfoot and I just injured it, that creature literally would probably go nuts. We've seen bears go crazy, or moose or deer go crazy after being wounded. I can only imagine what a Bigfoot would do if you didn't drop it.
Yeah, I mean, if according to eyewitness accounts, if they're as big as most people say, and powerful and able to scale hillsides in a couple leaps, and I mean, just do these amazing feats, I don't think that you want to mess with a creature like that. I mean, in my view, I would like to think that they are rather peaceful creatures. I know that there are lots of reports of people saying they've been stalked by Bigfoots and they've been threatened by Bigfoots, but some of the people I've spoken with anonymously have just felt that they were more just doing their thing, and you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. And that's kind of the attitude I portray of them in the book as well.
Speaking of powerful, a couple of weeks ago we had a gentleman on named Eric Mothman, and down in Florida he has a cabin which is surrounded by Florida swamp up north in the state, and he has Bigfoot activity there. And he was telling us all sorts of stories about how he heard one night a Bigfoot pull apart a wild boar. It was just incredible. The squealing of the boar, he says that's an image you just do not get out of your mind when it can absolutely rip apart a live creature with its bare hands. It's a strong creature. It's a tough creature. But my question to you, Rebecca, is what do you think Bigfoot truly is?
It's just so hard to answer. I mean, I have to look at, so you have to look at the evidence that there is, which is there are these footprints, there are these, thousands of sightings, there is this history, and there are so many stories and legends, and it's also kind of entrenched in a lot of Native American and First Nations histories. In fact, I think many people in those communities would just kind of assume that a creature such as Bigfoot exists, and it's not questioned, it's kind of accepted. I think in the Himalayas, it's just kind of accepted by the people there that Yeti exists. So, what are they? Ethereal, maybe? Maybe not just an ape walking around. I mean, as intelligent as apes are, would they be able to just kind of remain hidden all of this time? I don't know. So are these creatures that maybe are a little bit more elusive in a sense that they have some sort of powers that allow them to stay that way? I don't know. I mean, I think it's a great question. What is really going on? What are they? There's something out there.
I know my opinion of what Bigfoot is a lot different than a lot of opinions out there. I tend to think Bigfoot is more of a shapeshifter / interdimensional being. I know a lot of scientists believe that it is a bipedal creature, much like the Gigantopithecus, or maybe the missing link to mankind. Do you believe then more of the Native American First Nations group, where they believe it's more of a spiritual type creature, or do you believe that this is a creature that is of an ape-like descent?
I actually studied anthropology as an undergrad, and at that time I would have said, well, there's no way a breeding population of an unknown ape or a Gigantopithecus could exist. It just wouldn't be possible. You would need a large population. There would be someone that would find them or see them. Obviously, whatever they are, they're very intelligent. They're able to elude people. So in the book, The Bigfoot Paradox, I mean, that's the thing about the book, is that I'm exploring the idea that maybe these creatures, the reason they've remained hidden all of this time is because they are more spiritual. They do possess certain powers. Maybe they're otherworldly. Maybe they're less like apes, and they're more like evolved humans who have evolved in a certain way where they have powers of telepathy and powers of teleportation and things like that. So it gets into the science fiction of it. And because I think it's an interesting answer to the question. And the first time I really learned about these sort of theories that Bigfoot was more than just a bipedal ape, well, I think my husband and I visited the Bigfoot, I think it's called the Bigfoot Discovery Museum in Felton, California, probably 6 or 7 years ago, and we had a great conversation with Mike Rugg, and he blew me away. It opened my eyes to so many possibilities beyond just there's this big scary ape walking around, frightening people and stealing their chickens or whatever. It was so much. It could be so much more complicated than that, depending on your view. So I think in order to remain hidden all of this time, there has to be more to what these creatures are than just a bipedal ape. And as far as a missing link, I don't think so. I mean, I think it's different. If Bigfoots are in fact just a regular, creature, they're just more like a person and maybe a wild cousin of humans. I mean, I think they're more human-like than ape-like. Well, I guess humans are technically apes, but I just think there's more. I think they have powers, or there's something that sets them apart, which is why people see them, but no one can catch one.
We are talking with author Rebecca Coit tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Her book, The Bigfoot Paradox, can be found on Amazon right now. We are going to open up the lines to Rebecca if you have any Bigfoot questions at the top of the hour, and we will give you the phone line at that time. So if you want to call in, next hour we will open up the phone lines to talk Bigfoot and Bigfoot only. I have a couple questions, though, from our Spaced Out Radio chat room and Paranormal Into the Night. We'll start with Gail at Paranormal Into the Night. In your research, have you found that there is a type of Bigfoot on every continent?
Well, in what research I've done and just reading about it, you definitely see that there are variations in description and physical description. I mean, and I've taken a lot of liberties because the book is a work of fiction, so I have my own kind of idea of what the differences may be. The Bigfoots I describe in the book are more like your traditional Sasquatch that you'd probably find in North America, more of a dark brown fur. But then, I think the Yeti sound much different. Then you have variations like the swamp ape doesn't sound quite the same. So as far as existing in, I know there's supposed to be some in like Indonesia that seem to be smaller. I don't know. I mean, I'm mostly focused on the North American version, but in the next book I'm writing, I am going to introduce some Yetis into the mix. So I've been reading a little bit more about Yeti, which has been fascinating.
I remember one Yeti story that I read about in my research of Bigfoot, where these hikers or hunters were following these Yeti footprints along the Himalayas, and they followed this track for about a mile or two in the snow, and then it just disappeared. The tracks just disappeared, and the snow was untouched. There was no avalanche evidence or anything like that. The footprints just stopped. And that all of a sudden begs the theory once again, is this an interdimensional creature? Is it a shapeshifter that it could all of a sudden, say, change into an eagle or an owl or something to get out of the area? It's very interesting indeed. Eric has a question in Spaced Out Radio's chat room, and he is asking if you have ever heard of any stories with people who have had contact with Bigfoot via telepathy.
I've heard a little about it, and it's funny because in my book, I really explore that to a pretty extensive degree. I mean, I do feel that there, and in the book, the idea is that there are these people who are actually privy to the Bigfoot world. They have knowledge of it. They're kind of invited in this world of Bigfoot, and this may be kind of my fantasy of what it would be like, and I would love to be that person. But yeah, or people that sense something, they feel it. I don't know about the direct communication, but certainly if these creatures are the sort of ethereal, almost spiritual beings that I'm assuming they may be, then certainly they would have the ability to affect people using their minds. I think it's totally possible.
I totally think it is as well, but I think of it more on a spiritual level. I know, for instance, if I use myself as an example here, if you don't mind, when I had my Bigfoot encounter back in September of 2013, for some reason around March, April, as I was opening up spiritually, I was overcome with this feeling that I was going to see Bigfoot this summer. However, I thought it was going to happen in July, and when July passed, I thought, well, guess it's not going to happen. Then all of a sudden September rolls around. We're in behind my friend's farm. We walk into the forest behind the farm about 300, 400 yards, maybe 500 yards, and lo and behold, there's two of them there. We felt like we were being watched. And I'm wondering about the telepathic thing as well, because where I am now, I have a feeling that I am supposed to go back out into one of the forests, I know the area, and set up shop there to see what actually shows itself. Because in that message that I received, Rebecca, I was pretty much told, don't bring any weapons, don't bring anything to record, no cameras, no microphones, no nothing. It's just an experience for me. So, have you ever heard of anything like that?
No, that's amazing. And it's funny that you say that, because this is what I've been writing about, and these are just some of the ideas I've explored that people are being called by the Bigfoots. And in the next book I'm actually writing, I get more into how that whole process happens, and there's one character in particular that I'm writing about who, as a young child, they had been sort of calling to him and beckoning to him in his sleep, in his dreams, and he tries to fight it, and finally he just gave in, and it was his destiny, in a sense. So if these creatures are able to remain undetected, and these creatures are able to, like you said, you follow a trail and suddenly the footprints disappear. So if they're able to move interdimensionally, certainly they're able. I mean, it's not. It's possible that, of course, they could have powers of telepathy and that sort of higher level communication, because they already are. If this is the case, they certainly possess a lot of extraordinary abilities. So that could be one of the many.
Rebecca, I'm going to ask one more question here before we go to our first break, and this comes from a new listener of ours named Poppy. She is in Paranormal Into the Night, and she is asking, what do Bigfoot sound like? You said, Rebecca, that you heard the sound, and it's a sound that you would never forget. What did it sound like to you?
This was... It's funny because, and maybe we can talk a little bit about this later, but the whole phenomenon of the Bigfoot hunting television shows, I think, have brought the whole idea of vocalization to the forefront. So people are calling them vocalizations, and what do they sound like? And then there are people out there doing these calls that they think are emulating the sound of a Bigfoot would make, and then trying to get a response. So before all of that, it was probably, I think, in 2003, I don't know that what I heard was a Bigfoot, but I know that what I heard disturbed me, and I never heard anything like that before. I was camping with my friends. We were in Humboldt Redwoods, which has pretty much been regarded as kind of a hotbed of Bigfoot activity, and it was the middle of the night, and I heard a primal scream from a ridge, probably not too far off in the distance, and it was, I don't even know how to describe it. It just, immediately woke me up, and it scared me, and it sounded human, but not, and it didn't sound like anything I'd ever heard before. And I didn't know what it was, but I knew that it was something extraordinary. Of course, my friend whom I was camping with slept right through it. The next day, I said, "Did you hear that?" No. So that was frustrating. And then I discovered, I think, that I think around that time I had discovered the BFRO website and listened to some of the vocalizations that they had on there. And some of them, they were remarkably similar to what I had heard. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I wonder if I actually might have heard a Bigfoot, And I think now if you're out camping in the Redwoods or wherever, and you hear something like that, you can't really be too sure if what you're hearing is an actual creature or just a person doing a vocalization. But this was, I think, at a time before the Bigfoot hunting really exploded. So it felt more authentic. I don't know what it was, but it sounded an awful lot like what has kind of been described as a Bigfoot or Sasquatch vocalization. Very, very primal.
Mm-hmm. Rebecca, I'm going to throw you on hold here as we're going to take our first break of the night. We are talking with author Rebecca Coit. Her book, The Bigfoot Paradox, can be found on Amazon.com right now. I highly suggest you get it. We're going to open up the phone lines at the top of the hour for any Bigfoot question that you may have for Rebecca. I highly suggest you call in. 1-702-302-4556 is the phone number. Once again, we're taking open lines at the top of the hour. You're listening to Space Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be right back after this break.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Hi there. This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 Mediums and a Large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is Elizabeth Anglin, and on the last Monday of every month, I join Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's Cosmic Passport. We delve into everything from extraterrestrial contact to animal communication. It's a lot of fun, and every month it's something different and exciting. I would love it if you would join us. You can hear and learn from my experiences, and I'd like to know about yours as well. Cosmic Passport on spacedoutradio.com.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick Webster Small, and I'm here to bring you the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night, live at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. If you're looking for aliens and extraterrestrials, well, we've got them. Big and tall, short and small. You're bound to find what you're looking for, so join me on the Webster Phenomena right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Have you ever wondered about those weird and strange creatures people have reported throughout history? Do you wonder if those stories are real? Me too, and that's why I started Cryptopia.us. Hey, this is Rob Morphy, crypto historian. Join me once a month on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott, where we will get into the odd and bizarre reports, from the Dover Demon to hairy hominids and everything in between. I will break down what people like you and me are seeing at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to advertise on Spaced Out Radio? Getting your message out to Spaced Out Radio's listeners will benefit you. Our listeners are loyal, intelligent, and supportive, and they support those who support this broadcast. For pricing and information, you could go to spacedoutradio.com to find the pricing guide that suits your needs, with many options to choose from. Advertise with Spaced Out Radio today by contacting us at info@spacedoutradio.com.
Want to connect with us online? Find us on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show, on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio, on Instagram, Dave Scott SOR, on YouTube, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. All right, space travelers, here comes the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio.
Welcome back to the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tomorrow night on the show, we are going to have Mike Mays on. We're talking swamp monsters tomorrow night as we finish off the week on a cryptid note before Uncle Jimbo, James Tyson, heads back into the cabin while I wander off into the wilderness for the weekend trying to find my Zen, my Chi. Hey, I want to say thank you to everyone taking part in Paranormal Into the Night, Paranormal Forum, as well as the Space Out Radio chat room, as well as our only syndicate, our first syndicate show, one of many to come, SHR Radio. If you're tuning in there, thank you so much for joining us as well. We appreciate being broadcast on that network as well. Tomorrow night on the show, like I said, we have Mike Mays, Swamp Monsters. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also ask to join our Spaced Out Radio group. On Instagram, you can follow us at Spaced Out Radio. Make that Dave Scott SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show. That's where our archives go. They're always free. Subscribe to that channel as well. I think we've made about 58 cents on that so far. We're looking to hit a whole $1 here soon. I got to restock for Vegas. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we are talking with author Rebecca Coit. Her book can be found on Amazon. It's called The Bigfoot Paradox. Rebecca, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Really fun.
You know what? When I had my Bigfoot experience, 5 days later, on my friend's property, they had 10 acres, and they had a lot of spiritual activity happen on that farm as well. It was just, if I could have bought that farm when they sold it, I would have, because of all the activity that actually happened there, from Bigfoot to UFOs to spirit activity. It was just amazing. It was like one giant 10-acre portal. But I remember one night, about 5 days after we had the Bigfoot experience, we were doing a perimeter walk around the house because there was a lot of spirit activity. And this is where I actually saw some pixelation. It felt like we were being followed. There were 4 of us. And I remember I kept looking back as we were walking along the side of the house. I kept looking back, feeling that we were being followed, until something caught my eye. And they had this old cherry tree, and you know the older a cherry tree gets, the darker black the bark turns. And this tree probably stood 30 feet high. And I looked at that cherry tree, and in the bottom left, from up about 8 to 10 feet high up on the tree, there was pixelation there. Only 2 of the 4 of us could see it. We then continued our walk, and that's when we heard the roar as well. And when you were talking about your roar, it made me remember this, because I don't think there is anything that could as quickly put the hair on every hair on your body to stand up almost immediately than when you hear something that loud, that cringing roar. And as peaceful as it was to see the creature, the roar was absolutely scary, because we knew it was showing us where it was. And that's why I firmly believe that Sasquatch is a shapeshifter of some sort, because of that pixelation. When you heard your roar, what was going through your mind and your body at that time when you heard it?
I just immediately started thinking, what could make a sound like that? I mean, it sounded like nothing I'd ever heard. It was I don't even know. It scared me, but it also, it was exhilarating. It was so exciting. And I'm no expert on everything that lives out there in the woods, but I just don't, it sounded too human to not have some sort of connection. And it made me more curious and made me want to read more about it, and it gave me the idea that maybe these things really do exist. Maybe that's what it was. And that was exciting, and that's also a little scary to think that something like that could exist. I don't know. It was something. It was amazing. And I've never heard anything like that again. I don't know that I ever will. I don't know what it was, but I certainly, my first initial thought was, that sounded like a Bigfoot. That's what a Bigfoot sounds like. That's what it sounded like to me. That was just my impression.
Did you notice that it didn't echo?
Oh my gosh. I don't remember. It was so long ago, and it woke me from my sleep. I mean, the woods were so quiet, and then all of a sudden there was just a scream, and startled me. And I don't know. I don't remember. You know, it just happened in a flash. It was a couple seconds, and it was over, and that was it. And then, of course, I lay there awake all night, pondering and playing it over in my head over and over again. What the heck was that? But I don't know. I don't know why. Is there something to the? Is there a theory that they don't echo, or I mean, what do you mean by that?
Claudia in Paranormal Into the Night has a question for you. She had a Bigfoot at her bedroom window, and he was talking to her, but she froze. He was there for about 5 minutes. Do you think that we could understand what he was saying on a subconscious level and the message he was saying? And do you think that it would come through later on once you're able to figure it out?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, the idea that I have of them, that the way I write about the Bigfoots, is that they have their own languages, and it's not the same. They may have a different sort of anatomy, where they may not be able to speak the way that we speak, or perhaps they're more highly evolved creatures that have sort of lost that need for spoken language, whereas where they're able to just communicate telepathically. That she had a Bigfoot standing at her window. That's amazing. Wow, that's scary.
Yeah,
that would be something.
I don't know how I would react to that. I mean, hell, I've had an alien at this window, at my window, while I've been broadcasting this show. That scared me enough as it is. I damn near fell out of my chair when that happened. But I tell you this, if I had a Bigfoot at the window, I don't know how I would react, because that's getting real. That's getting way too real for me. Claudia, I do not envy you in that encounter. I want to get into these TV shows for a minute, Rebecca, because I'm going to be honest, I'm very public and vocal about this. I'm not a fan of them. I've talked to a few legends in the field here in British Columbia. One gentleman who's like the Wayne Gretzky or the Muhammad Ali of Bigfoot investigations, probably in the world. He's over 80 years old. His name is John Bindernagel. And I had a chance a year ago at this time to chat with John when he had found out that I was a Bigfoot experiencer as well. And he came up to me, which was absolutely shocking because I was a little tongue-tied when that happened, when you have a legend in a field come up to you. And one of the things I remember in our conversation asking him was about all these Bigfoot television shows. And in particular, the term Squatch. And I said to him, John, I'm not meaning to be rude here, but I can't stand that term Squatch. What do you think about that? And he kind of took a big sigh and a deep breath and rolled his eyes, and he said, that's one of the biggest problems with Bigfoot research today, is that we are starting to make fun of the creature. We're starting to bring it, the more we bring it to the mainstream, the less we are being taken seriously in regards to the investigation. And that really sunk home for me, and it hurt me a little bit hearing him say this because he's a legend in the field. What is your opinion, Rebecca, when you see the mainstream, whether it's History or Discovery or National Geographic, showing all these Bigfoot shows?
Yeah, and this is really what drove me to write this book. This book is a piece of fiction, but it's based on something that I've always been fascinated by, and the way that in the past, 10 years or so, the sort of sensationalist television shows have evolved. More and more people are actually not taking it seriously. Like you said, the man we spoke with, that was his, he took it very seriously. It's important to him. It's his life's work. And suddenly it's become the stuff of tabloids. And I think, Bigfoot stories always were kind of, weekly world news topics. But the way that the shows are edited to, every sound must be a squatch, and every twig that breaks, we're definitely, that's a Bigfoot. The way that they just jump to these conclusions, they lose, I think, credibility. And the reason I wrote the book was because this book is really about a child's experience with a ragtag crew of Bigfoot hunters who are just so dysfunctional. And their leader, Billy Matrix, is just this media, he's just all over the place. He's totally throwing himself out there. He's sensationalist. He's a narcissist. He's all about himself and self-promotion, and he will say and do anything to get attention. But deep inside, he actually really is passionate about these creatures because he had an experience as a kid. So I've created him to sort of show the dark side of Bigfoot hunting and how it's turned into sort of a joke in some circles because of the overexposure maybe on television and shows like there was a I thought it looked like it was made to be a documentary. It turned out to be a work of fiction. I don't remember the name of it, and Dr. Jeff Meldrum was involved in it, and I read about it afterwards. It was actually a complete work of fiction, and he had no knowledge. He thought he was just consulting on a documentary-type show. So, I thought that was unfortunate for him because he is a person that receives he's very highly revered, and scientifically he's an actual real anthropologist, and shows like that where I don't even remember the name of it. It was horrible. They had a Bigfoot trapped in a cage, and it was that's not going to help. It doesn't help. It makes it worse, and especially for people that are having these experiences that are very sincere. I think it's insulting to them.
Do you think then, like British Columbia, that every state in the U.S. and every province in Canada should have a ban on hunting Bigfoot?
Well, and the terminology, Bigfoot hunting, I think has come on to take a different meaning. It's more about searching. I guess there are people that go out there with guns or weapons and want to kill one, but I think it seems like most of the people that are quote-unquote hunting for Bigfoot are really just kind of adventure seekers. If a creature like that does exist, it would just, I think it would be an absolute crime to kill one. So, sure, make that a law, but I guess you can't really do that, and that's the problem. People want proof that it exists in the first place, so then you have this whole conundrum of, well, we need to kill one to prove it exists, and then it's just this vicious cycle. So I appreciate the fact that in British Columbia there is a law in the books, because certainly if one would come across one of these creatures, to kill it, I think would just absolutely be a tragedy. I would rather have them remain undiscovered forever than have one have to be killed. That's how I feel about it.
And that's the unfortunate part of our science, because for them, they always say we need a body. We need a body. I don't think you do. We have enough hair samples that we can test. We have enough footprints, which leads to fingerprints and all sorts of skin marks, much like we identify killer whales and other animals out in the wild, and we name them because of their specific markings that they have. We have scat samples. Okay, there's handprints, there's footprints, there's a lot of evidence out there. But I think what's killing this evidence is when we see all these videos on YouTube or any other type of video social media out there saying, hey, I've got the video, I've got the next Patterson-Gimlin film. And 9.5 out of every 10 of them are probably faked or hoaxed or one way or another. So is the Bigfoot community then shooting itself in the foot in regards to proving the existence of the creature without a body?
Are these people really part of the Bigfoot community, or are they just self-promoters trying to jump on the bandwagon?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah. Because if they truly care, then they're not going to perpetuate a hoax. Unless someone's feeling is, if I perpetuate a hoax, perhaps people will believe what my experience was. But that's certainly a backwards way to try and prove something. Yeah, I don't know. There's obviously YouTube. It's just there's a lot of ridiculous stuff on there, and you have to be pretty wary of what you're looking at. But then you do have things that come up that seem legitimate, and like that photograph, I think it was in Florida, it basically looked like a great ape. It was pretty much, I think, I don't remember, it was a couple years ago, people pretty much verified it was a real photograph, and my opinion on that, it was an orangutan that had escaped captivity. It was perhaps being held in a private menagerie of some sort. But so there are photographic evidence out there that aren't all fake, but that doesn't mean it's really a Bigfoot too. You still have to have a discerning eye and use your critical thinking and say, well, is that really a Bigfoot or is that a bear with mange? I mean, you really try to eliminate the other possibilities. But as far as the straight-out hoaxes, I think it's really irresponsible of people, but that's the nature of people. Everyone's looking to make money and get their 15 minutes of fame and throw in a ghillie suit and go walking around in the swamp and hope you don't get shot. I don't know. People do crazy things.
What do you think about the idea, then, for all these people who are out there, whether it's hunters, whether it's investigators going out, spending thousands of dollars on equipment, whether it's drones now, and they're not finding any critical evidence. Do you think, because other Bigfoot investigators before, and they seem to have the same thing, do you think that Bigfoot actually has the smarts and the capability of telling where technology is? Maybe they could pick up on a sound that's so acute that only their hearing can hear it, or maybe they could smell a camera or smell oil or technology?
And this question is a good one, because this is why my belief of what a Bigfoot is tends to lean more towards the kind of spiritual, ethereal beings rather than just a bipedal ape running around. I mean, obviously there are trail cameras all over the place. There are people with all types of equipment, like you said, and yet it's not working. So I think if they do exist, they are certainly highly, highly intelligent beings, evolved. Not the sort of idea of like a Neanderthal type. I think they're much different than that, and maybe beyond humans with their capabilities. Because how else would they be able to evade capture? I like the way that, I think for all the Bigfoot hunting shows, my favorite has been Les Stroud. I really like how he went out there and the way that he has respect for the idea, and he has respect for the First Nations accounts, and he's explored that whole spiritual side of Bigfoot. And he goes out there like he does with Survivor Man, with very little equipment and just sort of his observation skills. So I think he's more likely to come across one than anyone else, to be quite honest. No matter, you could throw thousands and thousands of dollars in equipment out, and it's not going to help. Because I don't think they're a traditional creature.
Well, what got him started on the hunt for Bigfoot was in Alaska. When he was there, he actually heard it one. And it's funny because I saw the original episode where he swore he heard something big on camera. And then when I saw the episode a couple months later, they had edited that part out, which I thought was very, very odd that they would do that. And it made me scratch my head. The conspiracy? I don't know. This is way before I started this radio show, but I found that very odd, and I think you're right. Les Stroud, who I've been trying and efforting to get on the air with us, but his schedule is just so packed, I think is the only one, like you said, who could actually bring some credibility to an investigation, because all the other shows, in my opinion, out there are made for TV. They're not made there to do any actual true Bigfoot research. I think the researchers that are on camera are real, but in the end, it's about ratings, not about finding Bigfoot.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I don't doubt that those researchers, many of them have sincere feelings about Bigfoot, and they're really out there for the right reasons. But then you have the producers of those shows who, of course, need to sell the advertising and need to keep people tuning in. So it's really the way that those shows are edited that just makes them ridiculous. And the way that Les Stroud approaches it, and I know he's caught so much flack for it. I have a lot of respect for him. I've always been a fan of his. I think he seems like a really stand-up guy and intelligent and open-minded, and I loved his style of doing the Bigfoot search. I thought it was, he put a certain level of respect and integrity into his method, which I found to be refreshing after, shows like the one, I think it had Dean Cain, the guy that used to play Superman, the big Bigfoot hunt, where they were offering this ridiculous amount of money for evidence, and people were competing, and it turned into like a reality, like Survivor type of show. And of course I watched it because I want to see what's going to happen, but it's all about the production and editing with shows like that, and they never find anything, So Les Stroud, I think, is someone who people can actually watch and have a lot of respect for his methods.
I agree with that. I think that he does it the right way, and he's built that reputation that people can trust him. Whereas if you're just throwing a group together of people that you've never seen on camera before, you don't know whether you can trust them or not. You don't know if they know they're made for television or not. So hopefully one day he continues his investigation in regards to it.
Oh, yeah, I hope so. He's the one person I really enjoyed watching, the Bigfoot hunt.
We are talking with Rebecca Coit tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Her book, The Bigfoot Paradox, can be found on Amazon.com right now. We are going to hop out for our break at the top of the hour. When we come back, we're going to get more questions to Rebecca, on Bigfoot. We are also going to open up the phone lines, 1-702-302-4556. That's 1-702-302-4556. If you have a question about Bigfoot, if you had a sighting that you want to share with us in the Spaced Out Radio audience, we would appreciate it. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back after this break.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy, from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
With an ever-expanding listenership base, Spaced Out Radio is the perfect place for you to advertise your product. Our listeners support those who sponsor this show. So whether you're an author or a company, Spaced Out Radio is the perfect place for you. Our pricing is more than competitive, and your advertisements will be seen and heard every show. Head to spacedoutradio.com and advertise with us today. Contact us at info@spacedoutradio.com today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Is the 24-hour world starting to wear you down? Let me from Rivulet Reiki and Readings lend you a hand. Hi, this is Jolene, and if you're in need of Reiki or a realm reading, come to my website, rivuletrr.wix.com/rivuletrr, and let us help you out. At Rivulet, I specialize in healing your body, mind, and soul, no matter where you are. And be sure to check out the Rivulet R&R Facebook page for your best deals. Remember, it's time for you to make some time for you.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
I'm so glad to be here.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space Travelers Club. You'll find all you need at spacedoutradio.com.
Welcome back for hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much. If you're in Paranormal Into the Night, Paranormal Forum, or the Spaced Out Radio chat room, I hope you're enjoying tonight's show. Tomorrow night, we're going into the swamp. Michael Mays will join us. He's an investigator. We're going to be talking swamp monsters tomorrow night on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Space Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Space Out Radio Show. You can also join us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. All of our archives are on our YouTube channel, Space Out Radio Show. Give us a subscribe on that. Click that little red button. We'd appreciate that. Like I said, we made a whole 58 cents so far on that. We want to try and get up to $1. I took a bath in Vegas last week. I need your help. Anyhow, our website is spacedoutradio.com. We want to thank all the listeners at SHR Media as well, as they are the first of many to come of our syndicated programming stations, shrmedia.com, if you want to check them out. Tonight we are talking with author Rebecca Coit. Her book is The Bigfoot Paradox. It can be found on Amazon right now. We are opening up the phone lines. 1-702-302-4556 is the number. 702-302-4556. I think we had a call come in during the break. We've just opened up the phone lines now, so if you want to call in, just be patient. We will get to your phone call. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a lot of fun so far, and I really like your opinion on Sasquatch being more of a spiritual type being than Gigantopithecus.
Yeah, I think it's actually, even though it sounds almost more crazy, I think it makes more sense, really. I think if it were a Gigantopithecus, we would have found one.
Or at least a skeleton.
Something, yeah. Well, I know the argument that, that people use, when was the last time someone found a bear skeleton in the woods? But I just think if it were more like a Gigantopithecus, I just think, we would find a person, we would find a Gigantopithecus. There's something that's setting these creatures apart, that's making them hard to find, and people keep seeing them. And I believe most of the people are sincere, that they believe they're seeing something. So if we haven't found one, but people keep seeing them, then there's got to be something else going on.
There are so many theories about Bigfoot, especially when it comes to what it is. We've been talking about quite a few of them tonight. There's also the theory out there that Eric in Space Out Radio's chat room brings up as well, that I think needs to be investigated a little bit more. There seems to be a tie between Bigfoot and extraterrestrials. Have you ever investigated that?
I'm starting to, because I'm actually incorporating that into my follow-up to this book, to get more into the origins of what the Bigfoots are. And yes, there's often the prevalence of some paranormal activity around Bigfoot sightings. So certainly I don't discount the possibility that there is a connection. In fact, it would make sense. Again, as crazy as it seems, tell me something, give me a better theory to explain it, because right now it makes sense to me that they are maybe otherworldly, or there's some sort of connection there.
I remember hearing one story from an investigator where he was talking to people who had a Bigfoot/UFO encounter, and they were camping in the United States in the Midwest, and they started hearing Bigfoot all around their camp. There were 2 or 3 of them. And this noise of the chatter and the voices and everything was going on for about 20-30 minutes. And then all of a sudden, this bright white light appeared in the sky. And they said these, what they think were Bigfoot, all of a sudden took off running as fast as possible before that light came over top of them. And it was almost like the light was searching for these Bigfoot. and the light ended up going over top of their campsite and then disappearing. They didn't have any lost time. But I'm wondering if, when it comes to abduction, if Bigfoot is actually being abducted just as much as man is.
Wow, I've never thought about that, but that story is really interesting. That the fact that they ran, I wasn't sure in my thinking, are they actually more like in league with aliens, or were they put here? Were they not a creature that just naturally evolved on this planet? Are they from somewhere else? I mean, again, my book is a work of fantasy, science fiction, but why is that not a possibility? Maybe that's part of the answer, is that they're not from here. They're from somewhere else. I've always found that to be an interesting theory, and I'm going to explore that in the next book much more deeply.
We are talking with author Rebecca Coit tonight. Her book, The Bigfoot Paradox, is on Amazon. We are going to head to the phone lines right now. Area code 918. Who is this? And you're on the air with me and Rebecca.
Hey, this is Roz.
Hey, Roz. How you doing, man?
Good, sir. Good. I was actually just going to try to send in some questions over the internet, but I'm thrown on the spot. So I was just going to ask Rebecca if she's ever been to the Hanobia Bigfoot Conference in Oklahoma.
No, I haven't. I haven't ever been to a Bigfoot conference, but it's something I'm looking into now. I'd love to get more involved in that.
I mean, it's not. I mean, it's been going on for a few years, but it's in a small. I wouldn't even call it a town. It's a community that basically has a few residents, a post office, and maybe a general store. So you're going to be camping outdoors. It's in rural Oklahoma, southeast. I haven't been there yet, but I'd like to go. But I just think this is my thought on reason why you don't catch them on trail cams is because the frequencies that they put out, the cameras, the electronics. There are rodent repellents that use electronics to send out frequencies, and I think the Bigfoot sense them or even hear them, maybe like a dog whistle. And that's why they don't go around them, because it would be like maybe you walking and seeing a stoplight. You're like, oh, or you see the, cross or don't cross. You're like, oh, well, there's something there that's telling you to go or not go. So, and I think a lot of things like that, and maybe they're more of Dave's heard me say this before, but, me and my cousins, we've talked about this around a campfire, having a few adult beverages, but the movie Predator, we think of them as like the predator because you're not going to catch them, you're not going to see them. They only make themselves visible to you when you're either accepting of them or just totally bewildered. I'm full-blood Native American, and we believe Bigfoot has strong medicine to where they will appear to you if they want, or if you do see them, have the ability to make you forget to where you don't recall anything at all, like hunters out in the wild. Some of them may see them, but, I'm sure a lot of hunters see them, or the Bigfoots see the hunters, but a lot of the hunters don't see the Bigfoots because they're so, the easiest way for me to refer to it is like the last scene in Harry the Hendersons when Harry goes back to his family and all of the Bigfoots stand up and turn around, and you're like, oh my goodness, they're right there in front of me, but I didn't see them. The more you're out in nature, the more you see things, the more you become in tune with it. And it's just one of those things, like I like to walk barefooted outside in the grass. I like to feel the soft dirt between my toes, barefooted. I like to walk in the rain. My grandfather told me no matter what man accomplishes, the most humbling thing for man is to walk in the rain. So when I'm feeling a little high and mighty or, something, and I feel the rain come down on me, it's like, okay, I'm brought back down to earth. But it's one of those, and Dave was talking about with his kids. Kids are so in tune with earth and receptive to things that I refer to it as when a child loses their innocence, when they're like, okay, I'm not supposed to believe in this anymore. I'm getting older. What I saw as a kid, I'm looking for a rational explanation. I don't want a child to ever lose that. That's one of the things that I miss as a kid, is because some people may have never seen a Bigfoot, but Christmas morning, you think Santa Claus came by and dropped those presents. When you have that, I think that you walk that fine line as to seeing and believing, and for things to just, come upon you.
Roz, do you have a question for Rebecca?
Yeah, I was just, if you've ever seen a Bigfoot, would you, it's not more of a question, but I know you don't want to hunt it, and I know you appreciate it, which that makes me really appreciative of you, is if you had definite proof, for a Bigfoot, would you show it? Because I'm afraid once somebody has definite proof, everybody's going to be out there. It's kind of like a secret that everybody knows about. I mean, if you had definite proof, would you share it with the world?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. I would want to protect them. I wouldn't want to make it, unless there was a way to do that. And that's the big question, is what would be the right thing to do? I talk about it in the book. There are two characters in the book. One is, she's actually a psychic, and the other one, he just has like a spiritual connection with them. And they have a heated discussion. What's the right thing to do? They both believe they're real, but do we let people know, and do we try to get them protection? Or do we keep this a secret and protect them by not allowing them to be exposed? So much of what you said, I loved everything you said, and it resonated with me, that especially with children, how children are more open to things, and they sort of are deep programmed in a sense as we get older. Kids have imaginary friends, kids have fantasy lives. How much of that is real? What is real? And then we tell them, well, that's not real. So then they say, okay, well, I guess my imaginary friend isn't real, and they kind of forget about it. I mean, I'm also a person who believes in reincarnation. So you have many accounts of young children discussing things that they would have no knowledge of, or having knowledge of people, specific details of people and this other life that they lived in, this other mom and this other place, and they even can give details about it. And I think her name is Carol Bowman, wrote some really great books about that on reincarnation in kids. So, yeah, kids are amazing. I taught for 11 years, and I wrote this book, for that like kind of middle grade age group. But what's happening is a lot of adults are actually enjoying the books too. But I love the idea of that sort of innocence, like you talked about, before kids are deprogrammed, before they are told, well, that's not real, that's not socially acceptable. I love the imagination and the wonder and the open-mindedness of children, and I see it with my own. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they're just filled with it, and it's sad that has to somehow, that usually disappears by a certain age.
And another thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, sir.
No, you go right ahead.
I was just going to say, another thing why a lot of people who go out into the woods are not going to see a Bigfoot looking for them is because they wear perfume, they wear deodorant, they don't stink or smell like nature. That's why a lot of hunters before deer season, they won't take a shower about a week and a half before they go deer hunting. I mean, because you have the perfumes, the fragrances of everyday life. People put air freshener in their car, dryer sheets when they dry their clothes, fabric softener. So when you get out in the woods, you're kind of like the skunk. You're repelling things. And so if you really, really want to get out there and try to look and find one, or let it come find you, just get dirty and don't clean up for a while. And I really think that'll probably have people seeing things more. So that's it for me. Have a good night, guys. Thank you.
Roz, thank you so much. Roz takes part in one of the forums that follows us, paranormalforum.net, if you want to check out their website. Thank you so much for calling in, Roz. Appreciate that. Rebecca, I thought he made some very, very interesting comments, and Roz is always giving us a call when we get onto the Bigfoot topic, because with his heritage, I think it's very important that he brings a very different aspect and knowledge to the Bigfoot subject. I do want to get into that with you. Do you think, as researchers and you are a researcher. I mean, you're writing a second book on it now. We've had other people here on as researchers as well. But do you believe that we, as researchers, or just in general, people looking into the Bigfoot, take what First Nations and or American Indians have to say literally about the subject, or do you think we're brushing it off a little too much?
I don't think it's being acknowledged even remotely as much as it should be. I think that when stories of Bigfoot and these types of creatures are so ingrained and entrenched in one's cultural heritage, we should acknowledge that, and we should give that some credence. And I think just coming at it strictly from a scientific standpoint, I'm an anthropologist or I'm a biologist, and I'm out doing my research. I mean, I think it's good to have an open mind and also give credence and have some respect for the beliefs and the stories from the First Nations people and the Native Americans. Bigfoot, longer than anyone else, they have histories with it. They have connections and communications, and that's certainly not something to be brushed aside. I think that's something, if anything, to be explored more deeply and to be given the proper respect that it deserves.
Yeah, I think that's correct too, because there are so many stories from First Nations legend in regards to the Bigfoot. Like, for instance, many First Nations will not allow, at least up here, their females, or they forewarn females from walking alone at night. And it's not so much about being picked up by a hitchhiker or picking up by a stranger in a car if you're hitchhiking or something along those lines, but up here it's widely believed that there are way more male Bigfoot than there are female Bigfoot, and therefore many Bigfoot that are of the male variety are looking for a wife.
Yeah, I'm in doing research for the book I'm writing right now. I was reading a little bit about some of the Native American accounts, and I don't remember what group. It was the Pacific Northwest group. I think the Klallam tribe, maybe. There were stories of Bigfoot. As many, this is more in the past, but of them actually taking women and taking children. And I touch upon that a little bit in the next book, and how they have powers of hypnosis is another thing that's really interesting. So, yeah, I mean, I want to hear all these stories, and I would never be so smug as to not acknowledge that these stories exist and that there's something to them that we need to listen and pay attention.
What is your opinion on gifting sites? I had a lady on a couple of weeks ago from Paranormal Into the Night. Her name is Edie Kaito. And she tells an incredible story. If you get the chance, I know you've listened to archives. Going back into our archives on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, subscribe to it if you don't mind. That way we can make 59 cents instead of 58. But nonetheless, Edie has, in a hidden area of Indiana where she lives, a gifting site where she brings food out there, she brings toys out there, and the results that she is getting are actually quite remarkable. Do you believe then that these gifting sites are something that should be done, or do you believe that these are something that we should be very wary and careful of?
So by gifting sites, you mean she's leaving people, or she's leaving gifts for the Bigfoot?
Exactly. Like, for instance, they love bananas. She brings chocolate treats every now and again. In fact, she's even, when you go to the dollar store and you pick up one of them rubber balls, they love playing with that rubber ball. And she has everything secured so that way a raccoon or a marmot or something along those lines couldn't get into the containers where the food is. But at one point, she had one of those plastic rubber balls, and it actually had a giant handprint on it. And she has this hidden in the middle of nowhere, and the only people who really know where this gifting site is are the people who she's invited to it, along with the park rangers and I believe the police. So it's something that is not tampered with on a daily basis. But the results that she is getting from this gifting site have been phenomenal, where she's starting to actually learn what they like and what they don't like.
Oh, wow. You know, it's so funny. There's a scene at the beginning of the Bigfoot Paradox, and this was just purely from my imagination, but it actually goes along with what you're saying about gifting sites, where the boy, the protagonist, JT, his grandmother had experiences where she felt that there was a Bigfoot creature out there, and she would begin to leave gifts, baskets of apples, things like that, overnight for this creature, and then in the morning she would return, and the basket would then have a gift for her, a doll made out of, sticks or twigs or some trout, fresh trout caught from the river. So this was kind of a little relationship that she never saw the Bigfoot, but they had this sort of give and take where they had this friendship. And I thought that was just a really beautiful story, and I love hearing that kind of thing might actually exist, because I just think that's really a cool way of communicating and learning about one another. It can be dangerous too, of course, because you don't want the wrong people to find out the location. But that's amazing. I'll definitely have to look into that. That's really cool.
Well, I think for your research for your next book, Edie would be a great person to actually chat with, and I can hook you up with her. She is very, very knowledgeable and just so passionate about the subject and making sure that the Bigfoot family that she is in contact with, although she's never seen them, her daughter and her husband have had sightings around the gifting area, so it's almost like the Bigfoot know when they are there. They are watching, but they are very peaceful, and they've built up this trust with the creatures that Edie says it's just a matter of time before she gets a full-on close encounter.
Wow, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes time. I mean, it's not the kind of thing where you're just going to go out and you've built that relationship over time, which is really, and the trust. I think building the trust is a big part of it.
Mm-hmm. I've also heard from one of my First Nations friends that if you go into the bush, Bigfoot really loves tobacco. And tobacco is apparently a very strong peace offering, according to First Nations legend and lore, to offer Bigfoot, because it is such an offering of peace and everything. Have you ever looked into the legends like that?
No, but I will now. That's fascinating. I had no idea. I have a lot of research to do.
Tobacco, berries, and fish. That's what I have heard.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Have you heard of a lot of areas where Bigfoot is not so pleasant of a creature?
Yeah. Well, some of the stories from Himalayas, Nepal, Tibet, they aren't always painted as such docile, gentle creatures. You do hear stories. I mean, I've seen some interviews on television of some, herders or Sherpa type people that have been, I think, really frightened for their lives by an encounter with what they thought to be a Yeti. And I think most of those, and mostly there, I think people just accept that the creatures are real, and they're scared of them. A lot of I didn't know that the monks revere them, and they're sort of like a sacred spiritual creature as well, but people also have a very healthy fear of the Yeti, it seems, from the research I've done. I don't think there are a lot of regular folks out there going out looking for them. I think they just would prefer to live and let live. You don't bother me, I don't bother you kind of thing. So for sure, I've heard those stories.
1-702-302-4556 is the call-in number if you want to share your Bigfoot story or ask Rebecca or myself any Bigfoot question that you want. Rebecca, we are at the bottom of the hour here. I told you this show flies by, and you were wondering if we were going to have topics to run out of. Well, it's flying by. We are already at the bottom of the hour. We're going to take our final break of the night. When we come back, more of your phone calls, more of your questions, and more of us all learning about Bigfoot right here on the mighty SOR. You're listening to Space Out Radio. Our guest is Rebecca Coit. Her book can be found on Amazon right now, The Bigfoot Paradox. I highly suggest you pick it up. It is a good book, and we're going to be right back after this break.
Looking for a place to get your product to the public? Advertise with us at Spaced Out Radio. At spacedoutradio.com, you can check out our pricing and packages that best suit your budgetary needs. Whether you're a budgeted author or a company looking to expand, our listeners support the products that support spacedoutradio.com. Advertising with us is an effective way to get your message out. Contact us at info@spacedoutradio.com and get your ads out today.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit. And expect a miracle.
Right here, this is where we divulge the fruit of our research. Here on the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. On Spaced Out Radio. And we give it up to you guys, all the listeners, and the live listeners usually get something special and hang out in the chat room, and we love to have you. So we'll see you every Saturday night at 8 p.m. You know where.
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
The last Monday of the month on Spaced Out Radio is a night of psychic vision, mediumship, UFO and ET contact, Bigfoot stories, animal communication, and so much more with me, Elizabeth Anglin. I'd love it if you would join host Dave Scott and I on the myriad of topics we delve into. Every month, we share new views that may help you understand your own experiences. So tune on in at spacedoutradio.com and stamp your cosmic passport.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Missed most of tonight's show? Don't worry, you didn't miss a thing. You can head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and download our archives for free. And don't forget to get your Space Travelers membership today. Now, back to tonight's show. And welcome back for the final half hour of Space Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. We've rounded third. We're headed for home. Tomorrow night, we're talking swamp monsters and other cryptids with Michael Mays. It's going to be a great show tomorrow night before I disappear for the weekend and wander off into the wilderness. Just me, maybe my phone, because I like playing my Battleship, my Tetris, things like that. But we'll wander off into the weekend and let Uncle Jimbo James Tyson into the cabin. Remember, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. All of our archives are on YouTube. Spaced Out Radio Show. Please hit the subscribe to that. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We want to thank everyone participating in the Spaced Out Radio chat room, Paranormal Into the Night, Lynn and Roz holding down the fort at Paranormal Forum, and of course, everyone listening at SHR Media, our first of many syndicated radio stations to pick us up. Thank you so much for finding us and tuning us in. For the final time tonight, I introduce Rebecca Coit. Her book, it can be found on Amazon, The Bigfoot Paradox. Rebecca, thank you so much for being with us. It's just a pleasure to get your opinion on everything.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about Bigfoot. Really fun.
And once again, the phone lines are open. 702-302-4556 is the call-in number. 702-302-4556. If you've got a Bigfoot experience, if you have a story, a sighting, or you just have questions that you would like Rebecca to answer, I highly suggest you get a hold of us on the phone. One of the stories that I love about Bigfoot comes from a good friend of this show's, Elizabeth Anglin. When she lived up in Colorado, Elizabeth is a very talented psychic, she's a very talented medium, and she's also an animal communicator. And she's actually telepathically communicated with Bigfoot. They became so comfortable around her that one morning when she went into her barn, she actually found that her horse's mane had been braided. And I believe she still has it. She cut it out of the mane. Elizabeth, if you could call in to tell us that story, I would absolutely love it, because I know she's listening in. I see her posting on the forums right now. But it is an incredible story of Bigfoot. It really shows the peace and gentleness that this creature has for nature, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's the way that I portray Bigfoots in my book, is that they're the true environmentalists, they're the pacifists, they're very spiritual, they just are kind of protectors of the forest. So yeah, that's really neat. That's really cool that she's communicated with them. I have a character that I created who is telepathic, Carissa, and she's on part of the Bigfoot crew in the book, and she has the lines of communication open with the Bigfoot. And I always thought that the possibility of that was really amazing. Oh, wow, really cool.
I think it's one of those things where, Bigfoot is very respectful of what it does. I mean, we see, so many stories about it just wandering off or spying on us or what have you. But in the end, I think it's just as respectful of nature as it is to us, unless it's hungry, because I would assume the creature is an omnivore. Do you believe that it's an omnivore as well?
Probably, yeah. I mean, if you look at the accounts of, like what Rob was talking about, how he, in his sort of family tradition, to leave fatfish for the Bigfoot as an offering. So certainly, I think Bigfoots are the type of perhaps apex predator that will eat whatever is available to them, much like a human. And if they are living in natural surroundings, certainly fish, deer, berries, roots, whatever edible sort of plants are out there, it would make perfect sense for them to be omnivores. I don't think that they're vegetarian. I would love if they were, because that would just kind of add to the whole, Bigfoot is just sort of hippie. But I think that they are probably omnivores, and they have great respect for whatever food they do eat, but I do believe they probably eat animals.
I'm bringing in Elizabeth Anglin right now. She has just called in. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dave. I hope my headset's okay.
You sound beautiful. And Rebecca, this is Elizabeth Anglin. She hosts a radio show called Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Radio, and she's a very talented psychic medium and communicator. I would love it, Elizabeth. I probably butchered your story, but I would love for you to share your story with Rebecca about your horse's mane being braided.
So I lived up until just last fall, way out in the backcountry in western Colorado, the Uncompahgre Plateau near the San Juan Mountains. And I had been introduced telepathically to the leader of the Uncompahgre band of Bigfoot through a young man in Texas. And he basically introduced me to a Bigfoot that wanted to be called the Old Man, and he was, he wanted to be the only one to talk to me. And so we had telepathic communications, and they said, okay, well, we come through your area around the beginning of July, and we go up to the mountains, and then we come back in September. And at one of these points, now, so many things happened in the few years after that, but in the first year, I got to telepathically meet his wife, his daughter, and his 3 sons. And the wife said, I left them some salt, and I asked if they would leave me something in return. And I'm not sure, if this happened right away, because I was, trying to create a bond, and we had some other discussions. But when they came through, I had put my X-ray horse, pale gray, himself at that point. My other X-ray horse had recently died. And so he's by himself in the barn. His mane is completely brushed out. He's had show shane on him and the whole shebang. I wake up in the morning, and there is this beautiful, perfect macrame section of his mane. It's not just braided, it's actually macrame. And so I left it in because it wasn't going to come out. It was macrame. But it happened overnight. And that's impossible. Horses can get things in their manes if you leave them out in the wind and you don't groom them. But it's impossible for a horse to wake up. You wake up in the morning and you go out and there's a macrame braid. So I still have it somewhere. I've just moved. But, and it's tight. It's really, really tight with little, very fine, detailed knotting work. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. So that was done, I was told, by the old man's wife and daughter, who really created a bond with my horse Otto. And when Otto was alone, he didn't have another buddy with him for about 1.5 years when I was grieving his buddy. And so they really bonded with him and were kind to him. And he was fine with them. So that's my story.
Have you ever heard of that, Rebecca, happening?
No, that's amazing. Wow, that's incredible. What else could it have possibly been? That's just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I'm blown away. Beautiful story.
I do have an odd take on this from Lynn in paranormalforum.net. She has heard other guests on other Bigfoot shows say that they have heard of this as well. And in fact, that Bigfoot may be doing that to keep a hold of the horse's head so that they can make sweet love to them. at that time?
No. My horse is too big. He's a big X-race horse, and he didn't have a very long mane, so that wouldn't have done anything. I mean, his mane was pretty well kept. I had cut it. I had pulled it. It was probably, I'm trying to think, like 8 or 9 inches long, maybe 10. So no, it wouldn't have done a thing. But that's funny.
It is funny. It's a little odd. I had to, edit that question a little bit. But you know what? In reality, though, and Elizabeth, I'm going to send you back to your listening line right now. Thank you so much for calling in. I really do appreciate that. But in the end, it's one of those things we really don't know about, do we, Rebecca?
About their mating practices and how they procreate?
Yeah, about anything in regards to that. I'm sure they procreate much like men and women do, but in the fact of... Well, I couldn't figure out how else it might be done, but it may be one of those things that is just way far out there because maybe they're like humans. Maybe they're like dolphins, where they aren't a monogamous creature.
Yeah, I guess you would have to study the sort of the family groups, and is it one male and many females? Are they monogamous? I have no idea. I haven't really done much research on that. I mean, are they solitary creatures? In some cases, where perhaps a male will, like you said, in British Columbia, there seems to be a prevalence of males. So perhaps similar to some species of big cats, the males can become solitary and not have a group and just kind of be on their own. I don't know. And I don't know how they procreate. I don't know what a baby Bigfoot would look like. I don't know if it would be like a baby human where it would be pretty helpless. And so those are all excellent questions. I mean, I know that Patty, the famous Bigfoot from the Patterson-Gimlin film, appeared to be a lactating female. I guess that she had very prominent breasts, so perhaps if that in fact was a real creature, she was a nursing mother. I mean, yeah, if they're mammals, absolutely, it's totally normal.
Mm-hmm. I think when it comes to the Patterson-Gimlin film, I'm a firm believer that showing that creature is a female Bigfoot with the enlarged breasts, I don't think if anybody is going to make an ape suit, I don't think, especially in the 1960s, that they're going to take the time to sew a pair of boobs on there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so torn on that film because I want to believe it's real, and I've watched it a million times, and I've read arguments on both sides. I've read everything about it, and so many experts have said that you can see the musculature under the skin. There's no way they could have created such a sophisticated suit at that time. And then there are detractors who say, well, why is there hair on the creature's chest? Because it wouldn't be a typical sort of thing. Like if you look at a female gorilla, you wouldn't see that. So I don't know. I mean, to go through all that trouble to create a suit and make it a female, because you would assume that it would just be a male. A lot of thought, if that were a hoax, a ridiculous amount of thought and talent went into that. So I am totally torn. I don't know. It seemed a little, the thing with that video that made me kind of question its authenticity was more the stories of how it all kind of came to fruition. It just seemed like they got really, really lucky. But it looks real. How can you deny that is so? It just looks so real. Everything about it, and primate experts, primatologists have looked at it and said it defies logic. It looks real. How is that possible? I don't know.
Well, like I said, with that film, with that film, for me, what was the convincing piece for me was the fact that I just don't see anybody who's wanting to play a hoax on that. I mean, yeah, you can get your horses to act up at absolutely anything if you know your horse well enough. But what really, really gets me, once again, and what's convinced me that the Patterson-Gimlin film is not a hoax, is the fact that it's a female Bigfoot. And I really, once again, I know I'm repeating myself, really don't believe that anybody in their right mind who is making an ape suit would actually take the time to sew breasts on it. That just...
No. Yeah, I mean, that
you're just not doing that. That's a waste of time.
Have that sort of, to have that sort of, foresight and that sort of idea, it would be very, very unlikely. It's amazing. I don't know. If it's a hoax, it's the best hoax ever perpetuated. That's for sure.
Exactly. We still have time for some phone calls at 1-702-302-4556 if you want to call in tonight and tell us your Bigfoot story or have any Bigfoot questions for our guest tonight, Rebecca Coit. You can find Rebecca's book on Amazon, The Bigfoot Paradox. It's a great book indeed. I'm sure you will enjoy it. It's a good one to add to your collection. Rebecca, when we get into the whole likelihood of Bigfoot, whether it's an omnivore, whether it is an aggressive creature or a passive creature, have you heard the stories that Bigfoot never really travels alone, that if you see one, there's usually 2 or 3 more in the background?
No, I haven't heard about that. But I mean, I have heard that they sort of are in clans and family structure, and I don't know. I don't know a lot about that. I imagine it would be for their own safety, and they're very social animals, so that would make sense.
Claudia in Paranormal Into the Night is asking, where do you think, Rebecca, that Bigfoot lives? Do you think they're building teepees? Do you think they're living in caves outdoors? What do you think?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, and I know it sounds crazy, but I think they're in a different place. I think that they're able to, if they can sort of evade people for all this time, there's got to be somewhere where they are that isn't accessible to humans. To me, that it makes sense, and I talk about it in the book a lot, that there's they live in sort of a mirrored dimension of what exists, and they can travel back and forth through these worlds. And I don't see how else it's possible that they've evaded people all this time. Perhaps in some of the more remote areas, it would be possible to just live out in the open because there aren't any people around, but people have been looking for them and seeing them in places that are fairly well populated. So if people have been having sightings in these areas where people tend to frequent, but yet not finding any physical evidence of a site where they live or a nest or a campsite or a cave or anything, I think the only other, even though it sounds crazy, it's kind of where my science fiction mind kind of comes into things. Maybe they're in an alternate place that is not accessible to humans.
Do you believe, and this question comes from Roz in Paranormal Forum, that Bigfoot is part of the whole disclosure program by the government? Because the government knows a lot of secrets. And there is a story from 1999 out of Nevada where firefighters during a forest fire allegedly rescued a Bigfoot that was then taken away in an unmarked cube van, and the firefighters were told never to speak of what they saw that day. Do you believe that, or do you believe that Bigfoot is just unproven to everyone?
No, I believe if a bunch of firefighters are saying it happened, I believe them. I don't think people like that would risk their reputation, risk their career to make up a story like that. I just don't see it. So yeah, I think that there is knowledge. I think there's a lot more going on than we probably realize. I think we need to question everything, because we're getting one story said to us, from the popular media, and then there's the reality of what's really going on. So, and in my books, I really reference a lot of how people are very controlled by the media, and I especially get into it in the next book I'm writing. And it's it's a very dangerous, slippery slope to allow oneself to just be programmed. I think we need to have a critical eye with everything, with news, media, with everything we hear and see. And it doesn't mean you're crazy. It just means you have a mind of your own and you're a thoughtful person.
There's also some thought, according to Roz in Paranormal Forum, that the military ghillie suit actually came from a Bigfoot in order to camouflage itself so quickly. Now, I'm not sure how much you've studied up on that. This is the first I'm hearing of that as well. But the way Bigfoot could camouflage itself, it would actually make sense.
So the inspiration for creating the ghillie suit came from a Bigfoot? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
That makes absolute sense. Sure. I mean, isn't that what it looks like? People put them on and they go out and perpetuate hoaxes, and one poor guy, got killed. I think he got hit by a car doing such a thing. So certainly I think there have been, if you see someone in a ghillie suit and it's in the corner of your eye and it's maybe dusk and you're in the forest, you could very easily mistake that to be a Bigfoot. So I certainly think that makes sense that it could have been inspiration for the ghillie suit. Certainly what it looks like.
You live in New Jersey. Yes, you spent time out in California as well. But for you, if you were to go searching for Bigfoot, where would you have to go? Because as far as I know, and I've only ever flown into Newark, and I was there for a couple of hours and catching a connector, but it looks pretty socialized humanly, if I could say it that way.
Well, yeah, I'm in central New Jersey, which is, part of the New York metro area. We're very close to New York City, but if you go south, New Jersey actually has tons of farms, tons of forests, and the Pine Barrens are this huge expanse of forest in the south, and I think where the majority of Bigfoot sightings happen in New Jersey would be in the Pine Barrens, for sure. So I would have to head down there. You're not going to see a lot of Bigfoots in central New Jersey. Just simply too many people. They wouldn't. I think a good rule of thumb would be if it's a place where there are bears, then it's a place where I think maybe a Bigfoot could exist.
Do you then have that itch that you have to scratch and try and get out of the forest a little bit more to almost try and make that sighting happen just for your own personal quest rather than writing about it or anything along those lines?
Yeah, it's definitely something that I would love to experience. I was just in Arkansas. My husband's from Arkansas, and we spent a lot of time. He's from southern Arkansas. We spent a lot of time just driving through all the old oil roads and by the Washita River, and it was just so beautiful. And there had been a lot of sightings in that area, and of course, there's always that little glimmer of hope in the back of my mind that we're going to see something. But I don't know that I'd really want to see one with my kids with me. I might want to keep them home until they're a little bit older. I don't think they're dangerous, but I don't know. My kids would love to meet one. We talk about them all the time. But, yeah, of course. And when I lived in California, I spent a lot of time up in the redwoods, and it was always in the back of my mind that's how amazing that would be to have that experience. But I don't go out actively seeking them because I figure, they're not. I've heard stories people told me of people coming across one and surprising one, but I think it's pretty hard to surprise a Bigfoot. If they really are the sort of ethereal, very special creatures that I paint them as in the book, then they'll find you. You don't need to go find them. They know they're watching you. They know what's going on. That's why they can stay hidden. They're very smart. They have to be.
But they are not coming to central New Jersey. That's one thing we do know.
Definitely not. Way too many people year.
We only have a couple minutes left with you tonight, Rebecca, on Spaced Out Radio. I would love it if you could give a 2-minute detail on your book, The Bigfoot Paradox, and what's coming down the line for you.
Okay, well, this book is about a kid named JT. He's from Tennessee, a town called Unwin, and he loves the idea of Bigfoot. He's a total misfit. His family has a history of interactions with the local Bigfoots. The people that live in his little town pretty much take just kind of as common knowledge. Yeah, the Bigfoots are probably out there, but we kind of leave them alone. But then their town just becomes the focus of this huge Bigfoot hunt. And the infamous Bigfoot hunter named Billy Matrix shows up in town and sets up camp there and makes that his sort of headquarters for his Bigfoot hunting. And he's a sensationalist. He's all over the media. He'll take whatever publicity he can get. He's been looking for Bigfoots for 25 years. He's got his own, Bigfoot hunting organization. He puts together a team of Bigfoot hunters, and he has a guy who is a hunter and a tracker. He's got a psychic, telepath. He's got an anthropologist who's, of course, lends credibility to the group as being the quote-unquote skeptic of the group. And then he has a very mysterious South American man who has he's like the hippie of the group. He's sort of like the Big Lebowski in a sense, and he's like the spiritual guy who has this connection with the Bigfoots. And then JT, the kid, kind of comes upon Billy one day in the woods, and then Billy just invites him along as sort of their local guide and their connection to the local community. And they go out on their Bigfoot hunt, and they're being filmed, and things go terribly wrong, and everything falls apart that one fateful night. And JT finds out more than he ever could have imagined about what the truth is about the Bigfoot. And he sort of gets this invitation to kind of be a part of their world. And it's a big secret, and he's now holding this huge secret and trying to protect them so that Billy Matrix doesn't get near them. So he's dealing with, he wants the fame, he wants the fortune too. He's just a kid, he wants people to respect him. He wants to maybe make some money for his poor family, but at the same time he knows that what's more important is protecting this species of creature that, deserves to be protected and left alone. And that's the gist of it.
And when's your next book scheduled to come out?
I'm working on it now. Hopefully have it published in the summer. And it's longer. It's got some really complicated things happening. I've introduced some new characters, one woman in particular who is the sort of like the bizarro Nancy Grace / Oprah, who just is on a rampage against Bigfoot and is turning public opinion against them, and they're horrible, they're monsters. They go out on another Bigfoot hunt, and Billy Matrix is on the warpath this time. He wants them dead. So things are getting intense, and things are changing. JT's going to make some friends for the first time. This poor kid. He spent a lot of time with Bigfoot, so he needs to make some friends his own age that are human. So hopefully that'll be out in the summer, and it's coming together pretty well. So
excellent.
Can't wait.
Excellent. Rebecca Coit, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. You speak so well, and your knowledge is fantastic. Really appreciate you taking out the time of your busy night and your sleep schedule to spend it with us and our listeners on Spaced Out Radio.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I love talking with you, and I love hearing what everyone had to say and the people calling in and on the chat room. It's been amazing. I love talking about my writing, so this is great. It's one of my favorite topics. I can never get tired talking about Bigfoot.
Well, when your next book comes out, we're going to book it again. How about that?
Great.
I know my booking coordinator, Corey, is listening in, so she'll remind me of this because she's kind of smart that way. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dave.
Rebecca Coit on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Her book, The Bigfoot Paradox, can be found on Amazon. Get it today. And you know what? When we open up the Space Travelers group, which we're working on, Rebecca's going to donate a couple of books autographed as giveaways for you, the Space Travelers out there. Fantastic guest. Very knowledgeable. Very fun. Absolute blast to have her on. I will bring her on again. Love people like that. It's just so honest and pure. That's what it's all about. I want to say thank you to everybody out in the Space Out Radio chat room tonight for keeping it busy out there in Paranormal Forum, in Paranormal Into the Night, and, of course, SHR Media, our syndicated show that we are, or network that we are on. We really appreciate that. Hey, Poppy, I know you're a new listener. I hope you enjoyed the show from Paranormal Into the Night tonight. Really appreciate you giving us an opportunity and a chance. Would love it if we got your group involved as well. This is what we love to do every night of the week, 7 days a week. Tomorrow night, I got Mike Mays on the show. We're talking swamp monsters before I disappear into the wilderness for the weekend and Uncle Jimbo James Tyson comes into the hot seat. Otherwise, I'll be back in exactly 22 hours to do this all again. Much love to all of you. Much love to our two callers, Elizabeth and Roz, tonight as we opened up the phone lines for the third night in a row. Imagine that. How often have you heard me say, I just don't do that? Maybe I'm getting a little bit comfortable with it now. Our music brought to you by Ron Bumblefoot Thal. You can find Bumblefoot's Little Brother is Watching by going to spacedoutradio.com, clicking on the Bumblefoot banner. You can get all his music. Follow him on Twitter, @Bumblefoot. The dude is real and awesome and a fantastic guitarist. One of the best I've ever seen. We're going to enjoy it, man. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. Remember, all of our archives are on YouTube. Spaced Out Radio Show. Good night.